The end of the 1980s was an arena of European arrogance, where Ferrari, Porsche, and Lamborghini dominated the performance altar with the pomp and temperament typical of the old world. Their supercars were almost mystical entities. Fast, yes, but fragile, temperamental, and often cruel to their owners. It was the price of passion. Until the East, with its age-old silence and almost spiritual precision, decided to intervene. Honda, known until then for its excellence in motorcycles and compact cars, raised its hand, and the automotive world trembled. At the 1989 Chicago Auto Show, a prototype called the NSX, short for New Sports Car Experimental, was unveiled with the coldness of a surgical steel scalpel. It was low, wide, and sharp, with proportions reminiscent of F-16 fighter jets and a strangely Latin elegance, the work of Italian designer Pininfarina in collaboration with Honda's in-house studio. But what looked like a functional sculpture hid something even more dangerous, a plan to dismantle Ferrari's paradigms using engineering logic rather than the mystique of prestige. The NSX was not born out of desire. It was born out of a mission. Honda wanted to prove that it was possible to create a reliable, comfortable, and yet viscerally engaging supercar, a car that would elicit sighs in the corners without demanding daily penance. And for that, technology alone was not enough. It needed soul. That's when Ayrton Senna, the most precise of asphalt surgeons, entered the scene. During final testing at the Suzuka circuit in 1989, Senna was called in to evaluate the chassis. He didn't hold back with his criticism. He said the car was fast but soft. He wanted rigidity. He wanted communication. He wanted a car that responded like an exposed nerve. The Honda team listened and remodeled. The aluminum structure, the first of its kind in a mass-produced car, was reinforced, making it 30% stiffer than the original design. The NSX gained precision. It gained a voice. And with that, a legend was born. Officially launched in the North American market in 1991, the Honda NSX, sold as the Acura NSX in the United States, cost $60,000, half the price of a Ferrari, but with half the negative emotional baggage. It was the first mid-engine supercar to offer electric power steering, electronic throttle control, formula, one-inspired suspension geometry, and a 5-speed manual transmission that seemed tailor-made for obsessive drivers. All this with air conditioning, leather seats, and engineering manual reliability. The NSX wasn't just a car. It was a Japanese-stamped letter of intent. And the world, especially Maranello, began to feel the impact. At the heart of the Honda NSX pulsed a quiet rebellion against European dogma. The engine, a 3.0-liter V6 with dual overhead camshafts and VTEC variable valve timing, was more than a power unit. It was proof that technology, if finely tuned, could overcome raw displacement. With exactly 270 horsepower at 7,100 RPM, the NSX didn't roar like an Italian V12, but whispered promises of surgical precision, delivering power in a smooth, progressive manner, like an arrow being released from a bow drawn to its limit. This engine, code C30A, was hand-assembled in Tochigi, Japan, and was coupled to a 5-speed manual transmission with short, firm shifts. The limited slip rear differential aided traction when exiting corners, while the electronic management system adjusted the air-fuel mixture in real time, even under extreme loads. Nothing was random, nothing was redundant. The chassis was the real revolution. Made entirely of aluminum, an unprecedented feat in a production car, it weighed about 300 pounds less than a conventional steel chassis, without sacrificing structural rigidity. Each weld was monitored by optical sensors. Each panel was measured with precision down to tenths of a millimeter. The double wishbone suspension on all four wheels was directly inspired by Formula One, with forged aluminum arms and millimeter-adjusted shock absorbers. The geometry allowed the NSX to behave as if it were on rails, even in fast corners with violent lateral transfers. The weight distribution was almost perfect, 42% at the front, 58% at the rear. The mid-engine was not an aesthetic whim. It was an engineering choice to ensure dynamic balance. The body, with a drag coefficient of 0.32, cut through the air with quiet efficiency, without the need for exaggerated wings or plastic trim. Honda engineers spent months testing the car at Nürburgring, Suzuka, and the Tochigi circuit. Ayrton Senna's feedback was incorporated into minute details: floor rigidity, brake response, steering weight. The steering wheel, without being overly thick, conveyed every nuance of the asphalt. The driving position was designed with ergonomic obsession, with full visibility of the hood and pedals, perfectly aligned with the center of the body, a detail overlooked by many, but essential for those who drive at the limit. And yet, there was comfort: digital air conditioning, high-fidelity Bose sound, seats with side support adjusted to the anatomy of Eastern and Western drivers, all wrapped up in a package that weighed just over 2,800 pounds. The NSX proved that performance did not have to come with martyrdom. It delivered a new formula, where reliability, sophistication, and excitement coexisted. It was a machine made by humans for humans. It did not demand blind devotion. It demanded only respect. The early 1990s marked a period of cultural shock within the automotive industry. The arrival of the NSX in the United States was not just a launch. It was an earthquake. Ferrari, accustomed to dominating comparisons with a mixture of tradition and brutality, now found itself facing a rival that did the same job, but with pinpoint precision, affordable price, and unprecedented reliability. Porsche watched in silence. Lamborghini, with its design excesses and gearboxes that seemed like traps, simply did not understand what was coming. The Acura NSX, as it was christened in the American market, began to appear on every magazine cover: Road and Track, Car and Driver, Motor Trend. And the numbers spoke for themselves. The car accelerated from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5 seconds flat. It reached 168 miles per hour with ease. More than that, it braked better, cornered with more control, and above all, it didn't break down. Long-term testing revealed something unthinkable for a supercar. The NSX could be used every day. It was as reliable as an Accord, but as sharp as a scalpel. In direct comparisons, it began to debunk myths. Against the Ferrari 348, it was lighter, faster on technical tracks, and infinitely more ergonomic. Against the Porsche 911, it offered balance and neutrality that no rear-engine car could replicate. And all this with minimal maintenance, reasonable fuel consumption, and air conditioning that worked even in the California desert. It was a new language, and few were ready to hear it. Reactions were mixed. Purists turned up their noses. How could a Japanese car with only 6 cylinders compete with the great Italian manufacturers? Where was the drama? Where were the charming imperfections? But for those who drove with their bodies, not their resumes, the NSX was a revelation. It did not impose its presence with noise or frills. It just did the job, better, more efficiently, more controlled. Some more extreme tests were carried out at Laguna Seca, Willow Springs, and even at the Mid-Ohio circuit. In all of them, the NSX maintained consistent braking, linear acceleration, and neutrality in corners that dismantled the suspensions of more expensive competitors. It wasn't just performance, it was confidence. A driver could extract 99% of the car without fear. The limit was accessible. And unlike Ferrari, which punished mistakes with violent rear ends, Honda responded with feedback and predictability. This accessibility was interpreted by some as a lack of emotion. They said it was too easy, that it wasn't temperamental enough to be a supercar. But that was the NSX revolution, proving that excellence didn't have to come with pain. The real enemy, the NSX showed, was not the car next to you on the track. It was dogma. And that it began to destroy corner after corner. The Honda NSX was, for many, too good. And that was the problem. At the height of automotive romanticism, when a supercar was synonymous with sacrifice, with almost liturgical rituals to start it, with cabins stifled by heat and noise, the NSX emerged as a foreign body. It started on the first try, every day. Its air conditioning worked. The clutch pedal didn't require iron calves, and the electric steering didn't steal any sensations. On the contrary, it transmitted the texture of the asphalt with almost disturbing sincerity. It was perfect, and for that very reason it was accused of having no soul. Criticism came from all sides. Too clinical, they said, too easy, too civilized. For an industry that still associated suffering with legitimacy, the NSX was almost an insult. Journalists accustomed to fighting against the gearbox of a Testarossa or the ergonomic illogicality of a Countach felt betrayed by a car that offered pleasure without pain, as if excellence without suffering were heresy. In fact, the NSX was a victim of its own precision. Its reliability became a weapon against it. Unlike its competitors, it did not accumulate legends of owners abandoned on the road. It did not require rituals for changing gears. It did not have a difficult personality. And that, for a world accustomed to drama, sounded like a lack of passion. But the silence spoke louder than the protests. Behind the scenes, Ferrari engineers studied every detail of the NSX. The triangular suspension arms, the centered driving position, the use of aluminum in the bodywork, the compact but efficient engine, and above all, the dynamic balance. It is said, and few deny it, that the development of the Ferrari F355 was deeply influenced by the trauma caused by the NSX. Maranello understood for the first time in years that it needed to listen more to its engineers and less to its ghosts. Porsche, with its 993, abandoned the excesses of the past once and for all. Ergonomics improved, reliability increased, dynamic behavior was refined. Lamborghini, always isolated in its cathedral of exaggeration, would take longer to realize, but the seed had already been planted. Meanwhile, the NSX remained serene. There were no extravagant special editions. There were no flashy decals or opportunistic limited editions. It was a car that relied on its own engineering to stay relevant. Only in 1997, 7 years after its launch, would it receive a 3.2-liter engine and a 6-speed gearbox. Incremental improvements, not revolutions. The controversy was never about whether the NSX was good enough. It was about whether the world was ready for a supercar that didn't have to apologize for working. And perhaps, for many years, it was too good to be understood. The Honda NSX didn't disappear. It infiltrated. Silently, like a ninja's blade amid the echoes of Italian roars and German whispers, it became part of the hidden fabric of automotive evolution. Its impact was no longer measured by sales or auction figures, but by how much it changed the foundations of what we considered essential in a supercar. In the United States, where the NSX was sold under the Acura badge, the car became a cult classic. Not the loud cult of garages filled with chrome Lamborghinis, but the quiet cult of drivers, engineers, and those who loved the symmetry between machine and man. It was common to hear a former owner say they regretted selling it, that they never found that blend of confidence and precision again, that the NSX made every other car seem like an imperfect imitation of what the driving experience should be. It shaped not only rivals, but also disciples. McLaren, when developing the MP412C, admitted to studying the NSX's balance and depth. Gordon Murray himself, creator of the legendary McLaren F1, publicly stated that Honda was his greatest reference in terms of usability and chassis engineering. He said that no other car had managed to combine extreme performance with total control and comfort so well. This statement, coming from someone who despised conventions, was not gratuitous. The NSX also influenced the perception of what true luxury was. No more leather for show, no more power for power's sake. Instead, intelligent materials, purposeful engineering, and a logic that respected the user as much as performance. The NSX cockpit became an ergonomic benchmark. The driving position became a subject of study at universities. Even brands such as Lexus and Infiniti drew inspiration from it when designing their future sports sedans. But time was also cruel. The NSX was never a car with astronomical sales figures. And as the 1990s turned into a showcase of excess, with multi-million-dollar hypercars and supercars more concerned with likes than lateral stability, the NSX fell behind. Its subtle language was swallowed up by the noise. The next generation, launched only in 2016, would try to recreate the magic with hybrid technology, all-wheel drive, and more than 500 horsepower. But something was lost along the way. The essence was there, but diluted in electronic circuits and too much assistance. The new NSX was good, very good, but it wasn't the same, because there was no more silence. And it was in the silence that the original became eternal. The legacy of the NSX is not in garages, it is in hands, in the touch of the steering wheel, in the muscle memory of those who drove it. It is in the cars it inspired, even if they never admitted it. It didn't die, it just spread, like an idea, like a philosophy, like a whisper that continues to echo. Some cars are born to impress, others to compete, and there are the rare ones that are born to teach. The Honda NSX was a blade designed in silence. A blow struck not against rivals, but against the very conventions that imprison the idea of a supercar. It was not shaped by design whims. It was honed by engineering. It was not born of aristocratic heritage, but of the humility of those who listen, of respect for the driver, of an obsession with symmetry between man and machine. Driving an original NSX is like playing an instrument tuned by masters. There is no room for excess, for noisy improvisation. Every turn is a note. Every brake, a calculated silence. Every acceleration, a precision beat. It does not demand the submission of a tamer from the driver. It demands only attention, respect, understanding. If today you find supercars that don't break down, that allow daily use without losing their soul, thank the NSX. If you feel the steering wheel inform you, the gearbox engage clearly, the engine respond faithfully, there lies the signature of its influence. A legacy that has spanned decades without fanfare, like a master who teaches and retreats without needing applause. And if you still don't understand what a true supercar is, maybe it's time to listen again. Not the screams, but the whispers, the signs, the details that only a car like the NSX can reveal. Because while others tried to look fast, the NSX just was. So if this video has awakened something in you, a memory, a desire, a thrill, don't let that connection die. Enjoy this video. Subscribe to the channel, and if you can, support this project, because every gesture you make keeps alive the flame of machines that dared to be different. The Honda NSX didn't ask for permission, but it taught us to listen. Now, the road is yours, and the call of the blade still echoes.